Hello, everybody. I am Angie Callan, and this is No More Mondays, the podcast where we believe you can have a thriving career or business and an amazing life on your terms. Today, we're leaning into that on your terms piece in a big way because my guest, Lindsay Harle-Kadatz, is here to flip the script on how we as creatives and entrepreneurs build our businesses. And you all know I love nothing more than talking about building a business. Lindsay is a leadership consultant, coach, and the mastermind behind Growth for Creative Entrepreneurs, a program that helps creatives stop forcing themselves into processes that don't fit to instead design systems that work their way. Isn't that what we all want, to work our way? We're going to talk about why traditional business strategies often fail those creative minds. And newsflash, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably a creative mind, even including this former engineer. And we're also going to dig into how inner work creates outer results, why the right systems can actually give you more freedom and not box you in. She's fun, she's snarky, a little quirky, and unapologetically Canadian, which are many of the reasons I absolutely love her. Lindsay, welcome to No More Mondays.
Oh my golly, Angie, can you please send me what you wrote? Like, that was golly gosh, amazing. Thank you. Who is this person?
And oh my golly, already makes us love the Canadian in you.
Oh. So. Sorry, I didn't know if we were allowed to swear or not. I apologize.
You can totally swear on this show.
Yeah,
I never mark it explicit, but also people know me enough to know that I'm not always G-rated. So for those of you that are listening in podcast land and not watching on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn Live, I'm going to paint a little picture of what we're seeing here. Lindsay, the creative entrepreneur, with her signature teal dyed bangs and a very, very colorful brand aligned yellow shirt, yellow flowers. It's just a colorful, every time I see Lindsay on video, it's a colorful existence that is just very, very on brand. And it's one of the reasons I love how you also pair that with thinking in business as systems. And so as we get into this, I kind of want to give a little bit of backstory to everybody out there about you and how your perspective shifted, because you've studied neuroscience, worked with leaders, you're an artist and a creative yourself. So I want to know how you kind of came into this realization that creative entrepreneurs need to work differently and need different tools than traditional business owners.
Oh, golly, that's a long story. But the long and the short of it, I guess, is I come from a very corporate background. So I grew up thinking this is the way that one does life, not a bad way, but grew up thinking my path was in the corporate sphere and I'm going to be following that corporate way. I'm going to be wearing the corporate suits. I've got the heels, I've got the career. And then 2011 happened for me. And what it was this brain of mine was not meant to be in corporate. And it sent me on this huge journey around values and what are values? What are my values? How do I understand myself better? Why is this corporate future not actually aligning? And I'm in this dark, depressive, suicidal space where I'm doing real harm to myself. And suddenly when I very easily got access, and I'm going to say that, from a very privileged place, I was able to get a lot of access and belief in I'm not okay. So now let's get you okay. And I was able to do that self-work and really lean into the values piece and pull myself out. And it was just, I'm not meant to be in a corporate world. What do I love? And at the time, from a marketing background, it was all about content and copywriting and strategy and all of that. And so I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do for business then. I mean, I'm great at it. I love it. So on and so forth. But I fell into entrepreneurship. I fell into it. I did not have a plan for it. It wasn't modeled for me by my parents, which isn't bad at all, right? It's just I didn't see it. So I didn't have this connection in my head of, well, what does a business actually look like? So I started going into business thinking I had to apply my corporate learnings into how to build this business for myself. And that failed. And well, it didn't fail, but I had a long struggle and a long period of learning and a lot of having to go inward and ask, what the heck am I doing? Will this next program work for me? Will this next program work for me? Will this next program work for me? And none of them did, right? None of them did, because they're all built around a very specific type of brain, the quote unquote neurotypical brain, those who understand, here's what business has looked like. Here's how we operate business Monday through Friday. And that's that. And that just doesn't work with so many entrepreneurs, especially those creative entrepreneurs who we just don't have consistent energy flows.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you said something really, I think I'll connect the dots on something you said that I really appreciate, is that like, it felt like the way you were trying to work were failures, but really that wasn't the case. They weren't the fit.
Yes,
and
exactly.
But it took those failures, and it took even a little bit of, do we say mental rock bottom, which thank you for being vulnerable and sharing a tidbit there. Sometimes we have to go there in order to have the awareness. It takes failures to learn what isn't a fit so that you can find the fit, which is where we get into this talk about mindset and how critical it is to successful entrepreneurship, even executive leadership. I have long attested that entrepreneurship of any kind, creative or otherwise, is 80% mindset. And I want to hear more from your perspective on why that inner work is so important and was for you so important to starting to see business results.
Great question. So let's be intentional with that. So mindset, I mean, for me, I did not know what it was. So very quickly, most people have heard at this point the idea of what a mindset is, being that it can be either fixed, so very closed. This is just the way I am, and that's how it's going to be, and nothing's ever going to change. And when I fail, I'm the reason why, and therefore I suck. That's fixed. That's closed. That's not really conducive to joy, to self-belief, to self-worth, to attracting clientele who believe in you and who see the value in you, because you simply don't see the value in yourself at that point. On the other hand, there's this more growth mindset. And this all comes from the work of Carol Dweck. Read her book, Mindset. This book blew my mind open back in 2017 or 18 when I first came across it. And I was like, whoa, what the hey? And that really steered me away from the old copywriting and into this more creative entrepreneurship support role because of all of that. Now, the growth aspect is, okay, I failed. Well, that happens. What did I do well? What maybe could I have improved? Was there anything out of my control? Because chances are there are absolutely things out of your control that you cannot put any of your amount of worth into. Anyways, and back on. And
new painted across the sky.
Right. Yeah. You are not a failure. Your self-worth is not tied to what does or does not happen. Growth mindset understands that. It is, I am a process thinking. It is, okay, what did I do really well? How do I continue growing? What worked well for me? What didn't work well for me? Okay, so this didn't go the way I envisioned it, but what did? And what can I take from this to then try again, or pivot a little, or tweak a wee bit, or completely throw everything out and start anew? Because, hey, that actually maybe wasn't my path because I was trying to do what somebody else was doing. And having this understanding of what a growth mindset can do for you, it releases all that should that we put on ourselves as creative entrepreneurs, because we're seeing all these other influencers and entrepreneurs out there producing content, only sharing the real good, not the, oh, this is the poop part of entrepreneurship. You are in the poop and you are having to dig yourself out, and you've heard no for the past 6 months. And so how do you pull yourself out of that? Well, a growth mindset will allow you to, because you can separate from your worth of action, your worth of outcomes to your worth of actions. And what is it that you're doing to continue to move forward and be curious about what do I do now?
And there's lots of, I'll throw some like good old one-liner zingers, cliches. They're cliches for a reason, kind of things that you, first of all, big fan of Mindset by Carol Dweck. We're going to link to it in the show notes because it is that important of a read. And what, Lindsay, what I think you just alluded to, if we go nerdy into our shared interest in neuroscience, is the fact that we have neuroplasticity that we don't use. And if you have a fixed mindset, you're not leveraging the fact that we're meant to adapt. And through that adaptation and that pivoting and the learning through failures is where you build resilience. And I attest that the more you fail, the stronger you become because your skin gets thicker to the next challenges. Do hard things and the next hard thing doesn't seem as hard. However, if you have a fixed mindset, you're never going to put yourself out there that way. And that becomes really, really hard in an entrepreneurial setting because it's going to hold you back. It's going to keep you small. It's going to cause you to question your worth, especially when you get in front of peers, competitors, if you will, who are doing the thing, which brings me to the point and the reminder to all of you out there that comparison is the thief of joy. And while that is a very different episode, I think it is a good reminder to throw in at this juncture.
I think it's everything because I have been brought down by comparison so many times and have been struggling and have struggled in my business to grow in specific key areas because that wasn't aligned for me. And therefore, every single time I was in a room or on a panel with my peers, I felt wrong and less than, and that my ideas and thoughts weren't as good as theirs, even though that's not the case.
Yeah.
So it is very much about the ability to understand, okay, so our brains are essentially, we get most of our patterns and our beliefs and our habits developed by the time we're 8 years old. All of that is in there. So we then as adults still have the ability to go and look back and remember and think of, okay, we had a malleable brain as a child. We grew up with growing our brain. There's a reason why, we encourage youth to abstain from certain things while their brain is in development. We as adults still have this ability. We just forget because we've grown up in we need to produce and outcome and produce and outcome. And with creatives, we put so much heart into the producing that anytime there's this negative feedback, it can destroy you. And I've really had to learn their feedback is not my worth. So I can grow through this. So when I was doing copywriting, I wrote something and I sent it to an engineering company. And the feedback I got was barf. That was it. So I had a choice in that moment to be like, I suck. I didn't do the assignment. Oh, nuts. And some other really mean words that I no longer say out loud to myself. Or I could say, what does that mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing here that I can go and edit now.
Constructive.
So I had to reach back and say, amazing emotional reaction. You want somebody to have an emotional reaction when you're presenting them with something. Now we're editing. So what did I miss and how can we tweak it? And they were like, oh yeah, no, it was just, we needed a little bit more technical here. Otherwise it's good. Right. And so it's those moments of getting words like, I'm disappointed, because that's also coming from a parental place. And you're like, oh shoot. So how do you hear all of these things as a creative entrepreneur of somebody critiquing your creative, even if they're paying for it? How do you not let that harm your self-worth so you can continue to be invested in what did I miss? Where could I be more curious? Is the client just an asshole? Because sometimes they are, right? Like, so, and that happens. And so it is that moment of stepping out and pausing and being, this doesn't mean that I'm wrong. This means that I have a lesson.
there's a level of almost objectivity, especially when you're an artist creative. I think this applies even more. And I saw this when I ran an art center and I talked to lots of artists, and they would be showing their art for the first time in a gallery and trying to price it and all those things that bring up the very similar imposter syndrome that we deal with in any type of entrepreneurship or in careers, right? It's weaved throughout kind of all of life. And that is, in the artistic sense, there is an attachment to your work because no one else could create it when it's artistic creative. I would even say strategic creative. There's some level of it's attached to the individual, but I think there is a sense of detachment you have to have in order to be a little bit more objective in the relationship you have between output and your individual value. And I love that you brought up the child stage of neuroscience and that belief system, because I think where all of that converges is this idea that we have the same power to build a belief system as adults as we did as children. We don't exercise it, largely because we don't ever go back and review and question the belief systems, beliefs and systems that we were handed to in those formative years. They just go with us forever. And we never stop and think, are these the things I still value? Are these still the beliefs that serve me? And are these still the systems that support me in the way I want to live, do business, create, kind of whatever it is? So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that was exciting. Do it.
I built it up, and I'm going to put you on the spot. I want to know what what was the biggest belief you had to break when it came to this transition and starting to build a business and hone your creativity on your terms?
Oh, that's a big question. And the reason I'm struggling is because I'm coming into year 14 here. So each iteration of my business, because it has evolved greatly since I just started, since I no longer do copywriting or content development or strategy or anything like along those lines, but I help those who do. There's been different lessons and beliefs at each iteration that I've had to break. So, right away, back in like 2011, it was, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a corporate person who just happens to be writing content now. So what? And that really held me from taking myself seriously, from having greater, more equal business stature conversations of you're my equal while I'm providing you you're my equal always, but you're my equal while I'm providing you a service. And so I would diminish myself in conversation. So there was that really, and that comes up time and time and time again with each iteration, or depending on who the client is, right? Because perhaps they remind me of somebody, right? So there's these different things. It's an ongoing belief. As being able to identify it, though, is what's going on here. Do I need to go back and rewrite this again and rework it again? And that's okay. For me as well, it was the values piece of I did the work to understand my own, but I didn't realize that I also had to put that into my own business, because all I did in my own, when I first started, was what are really good values a copywriting company would have? And I got great values. I'm like, those sound great. And they were, what were they? They were passion, reliability, integrity, and originality, which are
really original
values you'll ever, right? And so those led me so wrong. And I was trying to grow this business around these values, and because I understand, because ultimately our values are the underlying beliefs upon which we take action. And I wasn't taking action, and I wasn't motivated to. And so it was, okay, look at my actual personal values and make that more me in the business. And then I started to open up and release that corporate side that was still there. And then even things like, oh, well, I'm a copywriter, I'm not a coach. The biggest takeaways that my clients always have was never the product produced, whether that be the brand voice or the articles or it was always the ahas they had about themselves along the way. And so it's kind of, and even in my personal relationships and other friend-colleague relationships or colleague relationships, it's always been this listening capacity. And so I'm like, okay, that is really what a coach is then. So there's always these different beliefs along the way. And then there's the personal ones that, my parents were well off. They had their kids at ages 32, 35, married in their early 20s. My mom was an assistant deputy minister with the government. My dad was a partner with Coopers and Lybrand when I was first born, which then moved and evolved. And eventually he retired from IBM. But that's the corporate role that I saw, right? So it's these moments of the belief that I had was I had to have everything put together by the time I'm 35 because my parents did it and I don't have kids, right? And so that was a huge personal one of I need to of overcoming what does a specific age look like, because here I am 43 in a couple of days, still no kids, still in this business myself, not climbing a corporate ladder, and I could be beating myself up, but I'm not because my values are different than my parents.
Yes.
And neither are wrong and neither are bad. But what will make me take action? What will help me grow? What will even more help me serve those along the way better? Because at the heart, that's what I want to do, is serve and support. Yeah.
I'm beaming with pride a little bit because this is behind the curtain. Lindsay and I have been working on some of this in her newest iteration of this business. And it I love how you just spoke into the fact that there is no right or wrong way to build a career in general. There's a right and a wrong way. Well, I should say there's a wrong way to build it for you, especially if you are taking what is projected by others or doing what is assumed or societal norms. I realized years and years ago, in 2008, when I had the opportunity to transfer from the engineering office in Boston to the engineering office at the bottom of the ski lift in Breckenridge, Colorado, because that was my goal.
Yeah.
And all of these people in Boston would be like, what the heck are you doing? You're living my dream. And I was sitting there going, you could do this too. Who the hell am I? I'm nobody special. I am just taking a risk, putting myself and putting my goals for life first. And I realized we keep ourselves small because of those imposed beliefs, because of the projections, and because of the societal norms that tell us entrepreneurship isn't mainstream. Now it's becoming more mainstream. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I want to reinforce and reiterate the fact that entrepreneurship versus employment, neither is better than the other. They are different. And I believe that we are kind of wired one way or the other. And if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, or in your case, that creative spirit, and you try to shove it into a system that isn't for you, you are not only not going to thrive, you are going to feel oppressed. Yeah. And I think that's where this realization and letting go of that for you opened the pathway to a journey. Because that's the other thing I want to point out is Lindsay is very open about the fact that this is 14 years in the making, right? This stuff doesn't happen overnight. So you've got to give yourself some grace. And I'm curious how you've been able to give yourself grace over the years and over the iterations.
Therapy. Lots of therapy. Wonderful therapist. Shout out Daphne. But also, it's a lot of self-work. One of the books that changed everything for me, and really being, you know what, I'm quirky, I'm weird. I simply cannot try and mask anymore when I'm in networking situations and stuff, because I come across as even more awkward. But the book that really changed me, again, it's so funny, books just kind of appear to you when they're meant to. As yes. I was in a used bookstore, just waiting for my sister. And I saw this book out of the corner of my eye. I was like, what is this? And it was called The Courage to be Disliked. I'm completely blanking off the authors right now. It's over there on my favorite bookshelf, but the print is too small and these glasses don't have that strong a prescription. But The Curse to Be This Like. And I read this again, and like 2018 was a big year for books for me in really starting down this road. And if you do the math, that's 7 years into my journey. And it really helped me understand and pause and say, what somebody else is doing is about them and their story, and it has nothing to do with me. And what I say to other people has nothing to do with them or their story, but it has to do with me and my story. So I can't please everybody. I'm not going to. And that happens. Okay. What does that mean then? It means I don't have to be everything to everybody. It means I can let go of that energy. One thing I was visiting my parents in Victoria, BC, British Columbia, Canada. And they and I was wandering around the pier, and there was this what is that called? A seagull? There was a seagull sitting, and he was all alone. And just all of a sudden I was like, you know what? This seagull inspired. It's like, we are always going to be the hero in somebody's story. We are always going to be the villain in somebody else's story. And until we understand that, we are always going to be the victim in our story. So all from not wanting to be pooped on was actually what inspired that for me. And it's just that it's true. So when we accept that, we get to be more powerful in our own story because we're no longer a victim. You know, this is a personal opinion. So long as we're not actively trying to harm other people and impose our beliefs and on others, let them be. Right? So long as they're not harming others and just being a dick for it because, oh, well, I'm just being me. No, it's because then it's we don't need to go down that road. But it is very much this releasing of, I get to be the hero in my story. And that will be the case in others, and that won't be the case in others. And how do I now want to operate? And I get to choose that.
Be the hero of your own story. I think that might be the title of this episode. Something occurred to me as you've been talking about different points over the last 14 years of growth and realization and discovery. Is I feel like there was a trajectory happening. So, early on when you were still in corporate, still operating under that imposed belief that you needed to be in corporate, the struggle, for lack of a better term, or the discovery was around a skill level, right? And the imposter syndrome of, can I write good content for engineers who tell me barf? And then, over time that morphed into the realization of like, what do I value? So kind of the next level of, okay, I can function in a certain way, but what's important to me fundamentally, systemically, from a values perspective. And what I've seen most recently, and I think what we're seeing in this conversation, of how those two things created a foundation to really lean in and explore the worth that you have to give to others, and how that has changed how you do business and who you want to do business with.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think this is something that so many entrepreneurs go through, but again, don't talk about, is where we start is very rarely where we are going. Because I can't even say, where am I going to finish? I don't know. I have no clue. There is no real end game here for me other than support. But I certainly didn't think, oh, I'm going to be supporting creative entrepreneurs, really understand their own inner systems and processes so they can then go and do their own thing without having to carry the heavy mental weight of loneliness, of isolation that can come from entrepreneurship, particularly entrepreneurship that we simply did not set out for, but fell into. Yeah.
I'm going to give you, I'll challenge you to think a little bit differently about the fall into entrepreneurship, because I could say the same thing, but I actually think you arrive there and it's where you're meant to be. It just was never
Ooh.
where you planned on being. And so at some point we understand our skills, our values, and our worth enough to arrive at that stopping point along our overall destination of life. And in that exploration is where we start to kind of lean into our purpose and what we have to offer others. And so I believe it's meant to be where like you were meant to fall into it.
Yeah.
It's just somewhere that the when it looks the right way or the best way for the time, it's somewhere like you arrive. It's hard to kind of like work into it intentionally. I feel like that's kind of what happened to me, and I would say that's what happened to you. And now you're iterating upon the way that you really really want it to look.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the systems piece of all of that, because you mentioned, these creative people especially don't like necessarily structure because they feel like it's restrictive. But it sounds like you have found a way to put maybe specific or creative systems in place that remove the overwhelm, help create clarity, and actually benefit you and your business. And I would love to know a little bit more about how that looks and even what some of them are.
Yeah. So going inward is an understanding who you are and how you operate and what your energy flows look like, as corny as that sound, but it is true, is the most powerful thing that you can do in your entrepreneurial journey, because it gives you so much awareness of what is going on, of what is happening from an emotional standpoint, so you can tap into your curiosity rather than your overwhelm. And for me, because of all the therapy and self-work I did, right? Like I had started to understand, okay, so I get why mindset works. I get emotional intelligence. I get these pieces. But what's the science? What is the real science? Because I'm a balanced creative very much in that I understand the woo of it, but I also want the science of it. And so why is it that, we can say, I have this mindset and it's not actually working? We're just saying the words. What is going on? Well, that then allows you to backtrack and understand, what is a belief here that is, hindering you, that may have served at one point, right? Because all beliefs serve at one point. It's when they're now hindering that we need to rewrite them. And so what is that belief that is not actually allowing you to move into a growth mindset? And when you're in that growth mindset, okay, great. What are the things then that we can start to understand about ourselves? So we're in a conversation and somebody says something, we have this emotional rush through us and we just get angry suddenly and we're about to react on the person. Well, rather we can pause in that moment and say, oh, that's interesting. Because again, going back to the courage to be disliked, what that person said had nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them and their experience and their context. For you, it's about, why did that trigger me? Note that, go explore later when safe to do so. But in that moment, you can pause, get curious and go, and then you can choose to move forward in a more healthy conversation, productive manner. So even, for instance, we deal with sales conversations all the time. We give a quote and they come back and say, well, that's really expensive, which happens so much with creatives because creative work is often undervalued. Rather than trying to jump in and defend and say, well, here's why it's this price, is just go, okay. And let the other person talk. But by you simply saying, okay, or tell me more.
You've created space.
You've created space. And you get to step out of that emotion and move forward and continue on your growth mindset work, continue understanding how do you then make choices and decisions from a place that's more aligned with you in your values, which are your underlying beliefs, your underlying beliefs upon which you take action. So then you can understand, well, what action moves me forward in the way that I need to.
So how do you do this? And this meaning the values, the inner work, the systems. How do you do all of this without crushing creativity?
This allows you to grow creativity because you're then making decisions. So for instance, my personal 5 core values are creativity, surprise, creativity, kindness, significance, independence, and humor. So I have
They sound a lot more like you than, what was it? Integrity,
passion,
purpose,
originality,
passion.
integrity. Yeah, I have strong feelings about integrity as well. And if you're using integrity as a value, particularly as a corporate value, it's not actually.
You're walking a fine line.
We'll not go down that path.
There's a rabbit hole that you and I might both share.
Yes,
anyway.
Yeah. So I didn't operate on those values though, right? And so I was so tied to everything must sound perfect. I have to be original, and that just takes everything away. It doesn't allow me to be creative. It kept me, what is that, handcuffed in a box of this has to be it, but I couldn't play. I couldn't trust the play within my heart, which is what my creativity as a value is. So when I started to understand that, it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? What do decisions look like when I come from this place?
Yeah.
When I feel misaligned, do I have a list of what my values are with 5, 10, 30, 60-minute exercises I can do with each one to get me back aligned so I can say, okay, you know what? I have a lot on my plate to do today. I've got to write this. I've got to do this. I've got to outline this. I've got to email this person and this person. And it just allows you to be like, okay, here's my values. Here's my priority list. Which makes sense to do at this point in time based on these things that fill me. It's very similar to the energy matrix that you beautifully walked me through as to what lights you up. And so when you as a creative entrepreneur knows what lights you up, you can then start to outsource or look for other ways to have people do the things that don't light you up.
Yeah.
And so that you can still stay in your creativity and work with others in their strengths.
And I think I want to make a point to anybody out there who's listening who maybe doesn't identify as a creative. Years ago, I went to a conference. This is anecdotal, but years ago, I went to a conference where somebody said the following, and it has stuck with me for probably 15 plus years. And that is, you have to be creative to be an artist, but you don't necessarily have to be an artist to be creative. And so for any of you out there listening, you have some sort of creative thread in you. It may just not literally be through art. Yeah. And if you're in an entrepreneurial setting, especially if you're developing your own, products, programs, and packages, there's creativity there. I would say even if you are an entrepreneur selling something that's already been developed, you still have to be creative in how you differentiate yourself. And the important thing I want you to take away from what Lindsay has been talking about this entire episode is that you don't have to have this all figured out from the get-go. And you don't systems don't mean structure necessarily, but they can alleviate some level of randomness and lack of focus that disrupts us as entrepreneurs. And if you're lacking that, you don't have to burn it all to the ground. Lindsay's proof that when you figure out how to build systems that work for you and with you, with your values, your energy, and the way that you want to work and how you want to help people, you actually end up unlocking freedom, flexibility, creative, and growth all at the same time. Now you want a shameless plug? I feel like that's a good time to shameless plug. Because everyone out there, Lindsay has gotten creative and developed a program to help creatives kind of do this and bridge this gap between their creative self and their business self. And I want you to tell everybody a little bit about it.
Thank you. So I'm going to do what a lot of creatives sometimes struggle with, which is self-promotion. So I am so passionate about helping creative entrepreneurs really understand and own their own awesome. because that we should not be hiding any which way. The world needs more awesome. So this program I do is a 7-week program designed specifically for creative entrepreneurs. Although, as the wonderful Angie mentioned, any entrepreneur is creative. And we'll go into that as well but we won't go into that. Anywho, 7-week program whereby I walk you through these tools and systems to help you understand yourself more, so that when you get into business more, you're able to do it your way. You're able to understand and set up your weeks. Okay, I have really creative energy on Monday and Tuesday, so I'm going to be filling my Monday and Tuesdays with output. And then on the other ones, a creative output on Wednesdays. That's my day that I'm done from the creativity. So I'm going to just do data entry and do my books and the things that maybe don't take as much intense energy as creativity, but still take, right? And so you can start to understand with the program that I walk you through is, how do you do this? How do you start to understand this about yourself? And then when you're in moments of the messy middle, of the overwhelm, of the what the heck did I just get myself into moments, how can you get back to ground? Whoops, Lindsay just hit herself, and that's okay. How do you get back to being grounded in the moment so that you can just breathe and do one very next action rather than sit in the world of shameful shoulding?
And overwhelm.
Yeah. So that's that.
Love it. How do people find out more about this program?
And frozen, so we'll just continue. And I hope this continues to record. So at the end of the 7 weeks together, there will be a 90-day stretch goal that you said. Hi, Angie. Did you hear everything? Frozen? You did freeze. So
yay, I'm back.
Wonderful. Woo! Okay. It could have been a worse face.
Who knows if everybody out there might have heard me interject, who knows, or me jump in when I was frozen. But we all love technology. We all love a live stream, everyone. If you ever needed proof that these aren't actually edited, here you go. Lindsay, how does everyone find out about this program and follow along in your journey?
What a great question. I was just about to get to that. All right. So what you do is you can either you can find it online at brpconsulting.ca/creative_entrepreneur. Or you can find me on LinkedIn at Lindsay Harle-Kadatz, and I am doing posts there as well. So you can be able to find the link there, or just send me a DM to say, hey, I'd love to have a conversation, because conversations are excellent. I'm not sure where this accent's going, so we're just going to stop.
We are starting to get to the voiceover set portion of the conversation. Exactly. And for those of you, we'll get a link to this in the show notes and in the chat here, as for those of you listening live. But if you are live here on LinkedIn, just hop over, follow Lindsay. I think that you will find her content a little bit of a breath of fresh air, because she's got a great perspective. And this is a fantastic program for those of you that are really trying to wrangle that mindset piece of entrepreneurship and get yourself into a nice, stable place to build a sustainable business. Mm-hmm. And so I want to give everybody out there, on that note, let's give everybody out there one more piece of wisdom and inspiration related to that, kind of as we wind things down. Let's say somebody out there is sitting there going, this sounds like me. And I don't want it to take 14 years. No offense. They're stuck in their business. Their business doesn't feel right. Just something isn't clicking. What is the very first step you would tell them to do?
Oh gosh. Do you know your values?
Yes.
Have you done the time? Have you taken time, real time, to sit and reflect and understand in the quiet of the night, when no expectations are put upon you, what is really important to you? How does this fill you up? What are the actions that speak to it? When do you fall in flow doing actions that align with the things that light you up? And so, there's so many things. So I know Angie on her website, there is a free values tool. I run a voracious values workshop, which is also part of this program as well, which lets you dive in and understand your own values as well. There are a number of other really good, free resources to just start understanding what are values. But at the very least, just know that, again, these are your underlying beliefs upon which you take aligned action. And so what values are the aligned action? What beliefs are the aligned action happening?
Yeah.
And that's your values.
We talk a lot about values on No More Mondays, and I have come to the conclusion and have 181 data points to prove it, that it is one of, if not the most important foundational things that you can do if you want to build an intentional, meaningful, fulfilled life, business, and or career.
Yeah.
Because you can't make sound decisions if you do not know what your priorities are and what you, not your parents, not your friends, not the social circle, not the Joneses across the street, what you value. And that's one of the reasons I love what Lindsay does, is because it is all values-based.
And I will say, it's great to know what your values are. Of course, obviously, we just preach that. It's great to know what they are, especially to help you feel good and energized. But as one client said to me when I was doing values work with their team, he came up to me after and he said, and this is an engineer, a senior technologist engineer, so very data driven. And he said to me, Lindsay, I get values now. You've made them tangible for me. Great. That's, of course, what I wanted to do. And then he said, and now we also have a foundation for when we have challenges that we can come to make decisions from. So at the very least, when you are in, pardon me, the suck, the challenges, the obstacles of entrepreneurship, knowing, I'm so passionate right now, knowing your values will allow you to make choices that feel good, aren't easy, but feel better and let you sleep a little better because of that, right? Because you have this foundation of this is me, who I am, and you can't change that. Well, you can, but you won't change. That's another conversation. We don't need to go there. We're getting to time.
Know your values. Stop.
Know your values.
And as we remind you how important values are, I also want to challenge all of you out there to be honest with yourself. Is there, or what part of business or even your career or even your life feels a little heavy, feels out of alignment? Be honest with yourself to lean into that and explore it. And don't be afraid to think about what it would look like to redesign it your way and to iterate from the foundation that you have and not necessarily burning it all down. Let yourself dream a little bit, explore those values, explore what energizes you. And I'll even go so far as to tell you to drop Lindsay and me a message, because this is the kind of stuff we love to hear about and love to know that these conversations are providing value and inspiration to you to not just ditch Mondays, but live a more intentional, meaningful, fulfilled life. This has been an amazing conversation. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me. Again, I am Angie Callen, host of No More Mondays. Thank you all out there for spending your Monday morning with Lindsay and I, and for showing up. And I hope that this conversation reminds you that sometimes the most creative thing you can do for you and your business is build it your way. And even more importantly, own your awesome. I will see you next week for another fantastic episode of No More Mondays to start your week. Until then, have a great one.